I think Treasurer has covered the grand architecture of our budget. My comments will be specifically on the capital investment budget, or the PIP budget for this year. And before I dive into just an overview of our budget for next year, I'd like to just say thank you to two gentlemen who have made it possible for us to implement including Treasury Minister. The two heroes that come to mind is the IRC Commissioner and the Customs Commissioner. I hope all of them are sitting here, been able to collect and send monies to WPA, and we've been able to spend within our budget, and at the same time been able to take off 80% of our capital investment budget. So Treasurer, thanks to you, but those two gentlemen as well who are seated here, thank you for your commitment and work that you've done in terms of collecting money for us to spend. Treasurer has covered much, and I think the framework numbers Treasurer has given. My comments will be specifically on major flagship programs that are structured around the M3B4 that we launched as government, and at the same time critical flagship programs in the capital investment budget that we'd still like to see in the next 5 years of this government. And some of the details I'll leave to my secretary and the two deputies to take forward in the rest of the meeting. As Treasurer said already, for one, the general understanding when we took government was that we would increase annually the capital investment budget. And probably the pressure for that type of understanding to happen, especially when you frame a new government, was that PNG is a developing country, but at the same time it's a challenging country with the type of terrain we have, lack of basic services for rural districts. Take for example my district, my village, I have to walk 6 hours to get to my village and there's no road link, so you can understand the level of realities that still lie as a developing country. So the general understanding was every year we would increase the PIP component of our main budget, and Treasurer would try to more or less contain or control our OPEX budget. So that's some of the framework agreement we had when we took government, and thus I'm thankful, Treasurer, to your team as well, that we've been able to increase PIP budgets in the last 4 years we've been, and this one as well. And as Treasurer said, one, this PIP is framed at the backdrop of us launching M3B4, and the general dreams and ambitions of our M3B4 was amounts to many. One, how do we from now to 2030 increase our economy from where we are to 200 billion economy, and at the same time the ambitious attempt of trying to create 1 million jobs for our people, and at the same time the quality of our lives for our people should be improved. So with those realities, and at the same time the constraints in our ceiling and our budget, trying to frame our PIP around that. So as Treasurer said, one, the increase in this year's budget is an increase of about 9.2% from last year's budget. So that's 10.7 billion capital investment budget. Now that's 9.2% increase from what we had last year. Basically the main programs that we had, like Treasurer commented on Connect PNG. Now why is Connect PNG important for us in government? Where the leaders in government felt that few regions in our country were not connected. Thus, the challenges that lie in those places, districts, wards, villages still exist unless we connect them to major growth centers, unless we connect them to major towns, unless we connect them to major districts or provinces. They would still have those challenges of law and order, healthcare, basic education. So thus, we need to connect those existing challenge places. So that's one, our flagship program of Connect PNG still stays. And in this budget, we've more or less increased the budget for Connect PNG. Now, Connect PNG, as per the M3B4, is not just Connect PNG. When we say Connect PNG, it's Connect PNG infrastructure, which basically covers roads that come under the mandate of Works Department. Then you have Transport Department taking on jetties, ports, wharves, national shipping services, because we have maritime provinces, districts that also have those challenges of having, they need to be connected by boats, and we need to build infrastructures like jetties, wharves so that they can access services in main key areas. So Connect PNG, those still remain. So the increase this year is about 9.2%. That's about 1 billion or 900 to 1 billion kina from where we had last year. So as per the SPAs, if you have a copy or if you've seen the copy of the MT before, there's 12 strategic priority areas that we government want to invest in the next 5 years. And those are what we term as triggers for our growth. As Treasurer covered most of the details in terms of numbers I will leave out, such as the direct financing and confessional programs, donor funding, and I'd like to thank development partners that have been able to partner with us in challenging times, COVID time, coming out of COVID as well, and they continue to support us in budget. I place on record our sincere appreciation to our development partners. And so if I could just keep those numbers, Treasurer highlighted, and take for example the key investment for this budget in next year, things like agriculture, we're seeing an allocation of 293 million. Road accessibility and transport, 1.6 billion. Now that's in line with legislation that we passed, the Road Fund Act, that we placed on obligation on government that we should fund every time 5.8% or 5.6% for Connect PNG roads. Energy, 627 million. Energy particularly to do with upgrade of Dirio transmission line, Kupiano transmission line, here going towards Kerema, all those places that are not connected in terms of power. We've allocated 627 million for energy alone. Trade and investment, 275 million. Road centers. The road centers are basically places such as we have 7 new districts that we have approved. Like formerly there was Talasia district, now you have Nakanai and Talasia. So Talasia is a township, Nakanai does not have many of those infrastructures, so we need additional infrastructures to be built for those district capitals. And then in 27 we have an additional 7 more districts coming on board. Things like districts like Angoram will now have Angoram and Middle Sepik. So we need to build those basic enabling infrastructures such as district office, bank, probably a level 4 hospital for them, so that when the districts in 27, when they come online and they have members representing them, they don't inherit a ghost district just by name, but it actually few basic infrastructures on the ground. So those road centers, 385. Now police law and order, and I understand that all of us will agree that we have law and order challenges in this country. So by way of budget, we want to increase the budget for police every year. And the police minister has done a tremendous job. You with things like IACA bills. Now the police department has gone into purchasing vehicles for themselves on a kina to kina program. So what it does is each district you buy one, and the police department gives you one. So no more IACA for police department, and we start to use under fleet that's monitored strictly by GPS and other technologies now. So that's the kind of work police is doing. They also want to build barracks. If you go to police barracks now, we complain about law and order, but their houses are one of the worst houses that you can find. And they live there and they come and try to wear a uniform to serve. So we need to build those basic accommodations that's livable for our police officers to be able to stand up and serve our people. SPA 1, economic investments. This area we've allocated 1.145. That's 10% of our capital investment budget. Flagship programs such as the 200 million kina for SME, for the banks, and Prime Minister and Cabinet made an intervention that we will allocate this funding to the banks so that they could lend to our SMEs. And this year, for next year, I think we bring on board some of the other banks such as Mama Bank as well will be recipients of this funding going forward. 161 million for land development. Basically, state does not own. We own about 3% or 3.5% of state land, and the challenge of development is very hard. And most of us understand acquiring land is a challenge. The state has to now acquire land to make that land available for development. Special economic zones, we've allocated 50 million for that. State equity, 150 million. Basically, projects that investors want to participate but want state to have skin in the game. That's 150 million that will go through a process of having competent people vet and comes the NEC so that we can have state equity programs in those major commercial projects. Connect PNG infrastructure, as I said, by 2040, our government, and I thank the Works Secretary who seated here, wants to connect the rest of the country. Now, most of us, if you see most of the success in other countries, take for example US, Australia, some other countries, the first thing they built in their country when they became independent was major railways, roads, bridges to connect the entire country. You can literally drive throughout Australia and you can literally drive throughout US, but you can't do that for PNG. You'll only take plane. We work Vanimo, even to Alata, we are not connected by roads. We need to connect the entire country. So that's basically connect PNG infrastructure for us to connect by roads and jetty transmission lines. ICT, we need to build towers, that's 87 million kina in that area. Water and sanitation, connect by having access to clean water in most of our rural areas. Housing, the housing department has had some funding for Duan Farm and other areas, so we need to make housing affordable for our public servants who are now, most of them are renting from places like Morta and other places, not conducive for public servants to be living, and then we force them to come and work and give us the best output in terms of their work. Urban Township, 85 million. In terms of the health sector, we have increased allocation for health district health program, meaning that every district must have now a level 4 standard hospital, not just a district health center that we term as an hospital, no. An ADB level 4 hospital has to be in every district. Also on that, specialized hospitals for cancer, for mothers, all the specialist hospitals that we want to partner with the health department. Also putting some funding down for the medical and health sciences school to be a standalone university for us to train our medical officers. And also doing, an ADB has come on board to support the reference laboratory, and we thank our partners at ADB. Schools, education, funding is put there for STEM education. This area is allocated 510 million kina, such as school excellences. We also want to do public service university and upgrade SILAC as well, Somali Institute of Leadership. TVET space, we're putting some money for our skilled to produce over 5,000 skilled Papua New Guineans. That's to target the employment opportunities presented by Papua LNG, Wafi-Golpu and other mining or petroleum projects that are in the pipeline. And we also thank JICA, the Republic of China, for their support in some grant programs for this year for STEM and education as well. Law and order, justice, we've increased funding. Those include ICT, completion of our courthouse, police barracks, ICT systems and case management for our legal systems, legal construction of houses for judges, magistrates, rural lockups, juvenile justice. So in this year's budget we have a massive 200 million kina for police assistance program, and that is basically to ensure law and order. We can't just be demanding from our police officers to give our best. As I said, we need to make sure they're living in good houses, and those critical infrastructures, to be able to get them to perform, we government intervene, and that has not been happening in budgets before, so we want to give major allocation. National security, foreign affairs, trade, we have those priority areas, 80 million. IRC and customs, I think for the first time we've more or less accepted the PIPs, because they've been doing very well, and we thought instead of just commending them by words and saying you've done a really good job, let's put the money down to fund their programs for next year going forward. So that's what we've done in this year's budget for customs and IRC. Digital government, ICT, 118 million. We're also doing the census next year. That's 100 million for us to complete the census, to verify some of the population estimates that we've done this year. Research and science, technology, climate change, we've allocated Go PNG funding, 43 million. Youth, a huge, very big barge in the youth population, and you've seen driving around Mosby or when you go other places, the youth, how do we create employment opportunities? We're working with Labour Department to audit the type of youth that we have, and at the same time youth volunteer services, youth compulsory services that will be driven by community development and NYA. Strategic partnerships, Treasurer has touched some of them. Now to districts and provinces. Districts, 10 million kina DSIP, it still remain, DSIP 10 million. But we also have an additional program of a kina for kina program. Basically means if a district has a road he wants to fund, a member wants to fund with 5 million, we will counter fund another 5 million. But the condition is that program has to be captured as one of those important roads identified in the M3 or it's a SPA, one of those 12 SPA investment areas, so that we can be able to fund on a kina for kina basis. Provinces, same as well, that allocation is funded to them. DSIP programs remain. Now the challenges we have coming at the back of launching the M3 was basically having a big budget is a number, but how do we actually implement that capital investment budget? And from our side, we're taking a couple of steps, and one of the major steps from finance we're taking is that next year we want to outsource payroll for government. So we're always talking about payroll in government, and we said now we should allow private sector to be involved in the payroll. So we give it as a service contract for payroll to be done by private sector. 1, 2, monitoring and evaluations. We government cannot fund and then send government agencies to go and audit those projects. We need private sector to come and audit whether the funding we're putting is actually working or not. Because when government audits governments, you might get a phone call and say, I'm part of the government, why is the audit team here? So we want to put it at a arm's length by allowing private sector to come and involve, and it will be a service contract. We outsource monitoring and evaluation so we can implement what is on the budget, so to speak. So with those many challenges, I'm thankful that Treasurer, we had an increase in the ceiling for us to at least have a 1 billion space for us to put those allocations for health, education, infrastructure. And all in all, we are sensitive to the need of our people for us to connect those people back to roads by roads, jetties, rural estate. For example, this year has got a huge allocation for open up those rural estates that have been closed down for many years. We're putting a big allocation for them so that people who can't get by roads can come by planes. Treasurer and ladies and gentlemen, our big thinking at planning is that when we turn 50, as a country goes towards and we celebrate 50 years of independence, do we want to leave Telefomin out of that celebration? Do we want to leave Finchafen out? Do we want to leave other places, coastal places, KVN, I think KVN, which for east or west KVN? But those places that are still locked, people are still trapped, we need them to be able to appreciate that when they celebrate 50 years, at least they can be able to access a basic government service either by road, boat, either by plane, or something that can connect them to still be part of our country. So, Treasurer, thank you, and I thank my team. The rest of the details my team will present towards them. Thank you everyone for coming.